The golden spice and the reflective journey of George Sullivan had always been fascinated by the stories of natural remedies. Now in his 70s, retired from his career as a history professor, he spent most of his time researching ways to age gracefully and maintain his independence. While many of his friends were reliant on an ever-growing list of medications, George approached his health differently. He believed in taking charge of his well-being through mindful habits, particularly with diet and exercise. Lately, a spice had taken center stage in nearly every health article he read: turmeric. Revered in traditional medicine for centuries, turmeric seemed to be a panacea. Its active compound, curcumin, was lauded for reducing inflammation, alleviating joint pain, and even delaying cognitive decline, problems George was starting to battle himself. But as he learned more, George discovered that this golden spice wasn't as simple as tossing it into every dish. 000 01 06 Discovering Turmeric's Caveats. It started innocently enough. George's daughter Claire, a nutritionist, had sent him a bottle of turmeric capsules with a note that read, "This should help with your arthritis." Eager to take charge of his health, George diligently took the capsules every morning after breakfast. He even started adding turmeric to his tea. Yet, after a few weeks, he didn't notice much of a difference. The stiffness in his knees persisted, and he felt frustrated. One evening, Claire called and asked how the Turmeric was working. "I don't get it," George admitted. "I thought this stuff was supposed to be the fountain of youth in spice form, but I feel the same." Claire chuckled. "Dad, turmeric is only as good as how your body absorbs it. You could be taking it with combinations of foods that interfere with its benefits." George was intrigued. He had never considered that certain foods could neutralize something as natural as turmeric. What followed was a deep dive into everything he might have been doing wrong. 05 03 07 54. The Dairy Dilemma. One of George's favorite breakfast routines was a big bowl of granola and yogurt. The natural tang of Greek yogurt paired perfectly with the sweetness of fresh berries. To top it off, he'd sprinkle some powdered turmeric as a way of doubling down on his new health initiative. What George didn't realize until speaking with Claire was that dairy might be his first problem. Claire explained, "Dad, processed dairy, especially things like powdered creamers or flavor-infused yogurts, can block curcumin's absorption. Even regular milk proteins can bind to the curcumin and make it harder for your body to use." George frowned. "Are you saying I have to give up yogurt entirely?" "Ashkind?" "Well, not entirely," Claire said, "but switching it up with unsweetened plant-based milk, like almond or coconut, might help the turmeric work better." George made the change and began experimenting with almond milk smoothies. He blended turmeric, fresh bananas, and a teaspoon of honey into a morning shake. Not only did it taste great, but it also made him feel proactive. 08-28 to 10-44. The Vinegary Surprise. One day, as George was putting ketchup on his veggie burger, Claire dropped another bombshell about turmeric interactions. "Dad, did you know highly acidic foods like vinegar can destabilize curcumin?" George set the ketchup bottle down with a mix of curiosity and alarm. "What do you mean?" "Things like pickles, salad dressings, and even mustard have too much acid. That can interfere with the curcumin's stability and make it harder for your body to take in the benefits." This was a tough one for George. He loved salads. His go-to was a mix of greens, cucumbers, and a generous bath of balsamic dressing. "So no vinegar at all?" he asked. Claire reassured him. "You can still have dressings, but try making them with olive oil, lemon juice, and black pepper instead. Black pepper is actually a game changer." From that day forward, George began experimenting with homemade salad dressings. He squeezed fresh lemon juice, drizzled olive oil, and generously added freshly ground black pepper. Not only was it delicious, but he also appreciated the extra care he put into his meals. 11-19-13-37. Sweet tooth trouble evenings were when George indulged. He'd brew a cup of chamomile tea and sneak a muffin or a cookie while reading a book. But as he scrolled through Claire's latest article on turmeric, he realized he might have another enemy on his hands: sugar. Refined sugars, like those in muffins, pastries, and sugary cereals, were inflammatory. This meant that not only were they counteracting turmeric's anti-inflammatory properties, but they were also interfering with his digestion and the absorption of curcumin. George felt disheartened. "So what can I even eat? Carrot sticks for dessert?" he muttered sarcastically. Undeterred, Claire offered solutions. How about whole grain toast with almond butter or oatmeal sweetened lightly with raw honey? Even smoothies with fruit can hit the spot. George took her advice. Slowly, his craving for refined sweets waned, and he started enjoying healthier alternatives. He discovered that a handful of fresh berries or a slice of dark chocolate could be just as satisfying. 14, 11, 15, 21. The Black Pepper Revelation. George might have been skeptical about some of the dietary changes, but there was one trick that felt like magic. Black pepper. Claire explained that black pepper contains piperine, which enhances curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. The numbers alone were convincing. Quickly, George made it a habit to keep a pepper grinder on the dining table. Regardless of the meal, whether it was a bowl of soup or roasted veggies, he added a touch of freshly ground black pepper. He smiled to himself one evening after dinner, thinking, who would have thought something as simple as black pepper could make all the difference? 18, 13 to 20, 31. The role of healthy fats. One afternoon, George tuned into a YouTube channel called Elder's Insight while sipping his turmeric tea. The host spoke about how essential fats were for absorbing turmeric. Since curcumin is fat-soluble, combining it with healthy fats like olive oil, avocados, nuts, or fatty fish optimized its effectiveness. George realized he had been neglecting fats in his diet. Decades of being told fats were bad had left him overly cautious. But now, he embraced olive oil, drizzling it over roasted sweet potatoes, adding sliced avocado to his sandwiches, and snacking on walnuts between meals. As he introduced these changes, George began noticing subtle shifts. His joints felt looser, and he had more energy during his morning walks. 21 to 44 to 23, 27. Sweetening life with raw honey. In his quest to enhance his turmeric habits, George came across a tip that felt indulgent rather than restrictive. Raw honey, when used in moderation, not only added sweetness, but also had its own anti-inflammatory properties. This tiny addition transformed his tea and smoothies into delicious treats while further supporting his health goals. George made sure to stick to just a teaspoon, mindful of his blood sugar. 04, 430, 05, 03. The turning point. Reflecting on his initial frustrations, George now understood why turmeric hadn't worked for him at first. He'd been sabotaging his efforts by combining it with the wrong foods: processed dairy, acidic dressings, and sugary snacks. By changing his habits, he unlocked turmeric's potential, making it a true ally in his battle against inflammation and aging. 24, 34 to 25, 43. Habits that last a lifetime. After months of trial and error, George had not only transformed his turmeric routine, but also his broader approach to health. He found pleasure in preparing mindful meals, experimenting with new recipes, and learning about the science behind nutrition. It wasn't about strict rules, but about making small, sustainable changes that made him feel better. And feel better he did. George's knees no longer ached on his morning walks. His energy levels were steady throughout the day, and his mind felt sharp as ever. His friends at the community center often noticed his vibrant demeanor and asked for his secret. George would chuckle and say, "It's all in the golden spice, and what you eat with it." 26:57. Spreading the wisdom. As someone who had always loved teaching, George couldn't help but share his newfound knowledge. Whether it was during coffee chats or posts on social media, he encouraged others, especially older adults, to learn about the foods they ate and how they interacted with key nutrients like those found in turmeric. By weaving his personal experiences with facts, George inspired many to rethink their dietary habits. His motto became, "The key to healthy aging is in knowing what helps and what hinders." And as George carried on his golden years with vitality and purpose, he was living proof of the wisdom he loved to share. The end. This fictional story illustrates how the points from the transcript can be applied in real life, helping readers connect emotionally to the information while learning essential tips about turmeric.